Hey,
That was really loud. Is that on our end?
hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Good, good, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Hmm. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for joining us at our February 2024 board meeting. I am Leah Cruzy, board chair. Joining me this evening are my fellow board members and colleagues, Treasurer Chantel Wright, Carissa Stanley Beatty, and Nick Rodriguez. Secretary Shakura Adamafanian is on her way, and Vice Chair Sandman is unable to join us this evening, but he has submitted proxy votes. This week, our city lost one of our iconic leaders, Dr. Ramona Edelin. I know that Dr. Walker Davis will talk more about Dr. Edelin because she knew her personally, but I also want to share how important her work was to the charter movement. We stand on the shoulders of leaders, educators, and activists like Dr. Edelin, and our city would not be where we are today without her. Dr. Edelin was a constant and powerful voice for quality charter school education in the district. She advocated for adequate funding and for giving charters the flexibility to innovate. She was a giant in the movement nationwide and had a vision of excellence for the young people of this city that she pursued for decades. She will be missed. Now let me turn it over to our Executive Director, Dr. Michelle Walker-Davis.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy. Indeed, there are many heroes of the DC public charter school movement, and it wasn't too long ago that I was with one of those heroes, Dr. Ramona Edelin. She and I would often share space, participating in various education meetings, whether virtual or Zoom, and I do know that I learned a lot from her on my first tour of duty here in the District of Columbia. As always, Ramona had a smile, hug, and a word of wisdom to share. I am deeply saddened by her passing, but I'm amazed to be a part of the legacy that she has charted here in the District of Columbia and in awe of her record of accomplishment. As a Black woman, an educator, and a parent, I share her unwavering belief that public education has the power to change lives and create new opportunities. Ramona understood and championed that vision every day. She could see a better path, a willingness to lead and shape public opinion, and made it her life's work. As we do this work in the charter sector and on behalf of the public education students across the district, it is our job to continue her amazing legacy. Chair Cruzy, I know I'll have more to discuss later tonight, but I want to turn it back to you now to begin our meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Walker-Davis. We will begin tonight with public comment. As we move through each agenda item, Aisha and Courtney, our moderators for the evening, will unmute DC PCSB constituents, staff, or individuals speaking on behalf of a school. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. Individuals who have previously signed up to testify will be called upon. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you didn't sign up by sending your name to the public comment mailbox before this meeting, please submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660 and select option 2. Let's hear from the one witness who signed up to speak this evening. I'd like to invite Ken Merritt to testify and invite Ken to keep your comments to 2 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. I am here representing the Board of Governors for Washington Latin. It's a real honor to speak on behalf of the board and talk about just real quickly our permanent home for the new Cooper campus. Over the past 5 years, we've really leaned into our mission and vision of growth and serving more families of the District of Columbia. And the new Cooper campus is a major part of that. It's been a challenge for us to find the right location, given our standard of excellence and affordability. And we wanted to make sure, having looked at over 60 facilities, that we picked the right one. And the Harvard facility has really been that. So we couldn't be more proud. We're excited to have the opportunity to own it because we believe that furthers our investment and security for the long term of Washington Latin. Lastly, we appreciate the opportunity that we're going to be co-located with Washington U Ying, and between the two of us, be able to serve families from pre-K all the way through high school. With that, I thank you for the time and appreciate the questions.
Thank you very much. I think we look forward to meeting with members of the school later this evening. And that concludes our public comment portion of our agenda. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
We might have to be a stickler here and ask you to repeat the motion with today's date.
Oh, I apologize. I move to approve the agenda for February 26, 2024 board meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. I will take a roll call vote. Treasurer Chantel Wright,
Aye.
Nick Rodriguez,
Aye.
Carissa Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
I am an aye, and Secretary Shakur Admathanian.
Aye.
Great, thank you. The ayes have it. Next on our agenda are charter amendment requests, and for that I yield the floor to Bijan Lane, the Sector Planning and Compliance Specialist, to introduce the request from Washington Latin Public Charter School and invite back up, as well as invite up representatives from the school to provide remarks regarding this amendment request. Welcome back, Mr. Merritt, and welcome Peter Anderson.
Thank you. Hello. Tonight, the board will hear from Washington Latin Public Charter School regarding its request to relocate one of its two facilities. The school seeks authorization in a Julia Cooper Campus Middle School in the in a Julia Cooper Campus School from 711 Edgewood Street Northeast to 4301 Harwood Road ahead of school year 2025-26.
Excuse me,
Representatives from the
Bijan.
school are here to take your questions.
Bijan, just so you know, we're having a little bit of a challenge hearing you. So if you're asked to speak again, maybe you turn off your video.
Okay, no problem. Did you want me to repeat that?
Yes,
If you could,
please.
Dr.
Bijan,
Walker
yes.
Davis?
Yes, please. We can hear you now, so
Hello, my
please
name is
repeat.
Bijan Lane. Okay. My name is Bijan Lane. I am a specialist in the school performance department. Tonight, the board will hear from Washington Latin Public Charter School regarding its request to relocate one of its two facilities. The school seeks authorization to relocate the Anna Julia Cooper Campus Middle School and the yet-to-be-opened Anna Julia Cooper Campus High School from 711 Edgewood Street Northeast to 4301 Harwood Road ahead of school year 2020-26. Representatives from the school are here to answer questions.
Welcome, Latin team.
Okay, I guess that's my cue to get started. Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to share with you this evening. Just going to share a few slides really quickly. Washington Latin is now in its second year operating the Anna Julia Cooper Campus Middle School at 711 Edgewood Street in Northeast DC in Ward 5. We are not able to occupy that facility for beyond one more year. And so it's been our plan, even when we got approval to locate at 711 Edgewood, that we would have to find a permanent space. And that permanent space is fortunately at 4301 Harewood Road, which is a site that we are going to be sharing partially with Washington U Ying, where they will be building an early learning center, serving grades pre-K 3 through kindergarten, where we'll be able to renovate an existing middle school on that site, or renovate an existing building on that site for a new middle school, and to build a new site for a new building. We know that on this location, we've got a couple of challenges that we are facing around traffic and parking, and we've been doing a lot of work over the course of the past couple of years to try to mitigate the challenges related to parking and traffic. It's something that we've been collaborating with Washington U Ying on, and we've also commissioned a traffic study. Our construction timeline is that we would break ground in May of this year for the new construction. We would do our renovation in January of 2025, and we would take occupancy of that site for both our existing middle school and our new high school in the fall of 2025. You can see some pictures here about what the site would look like. This is the new building. Right next to it is the existing building that will be renovated. This is another view of that new building. Again, you'll see part of the existing building that will be renovated. You can see another view entering the building, hallway view, the lobby, just to give you a sense of what the space will look like. This is the cafeteria. And as we have approached this date to make the request for the charter amendment that would enable us to be able to occupy this site, we've been involved in significant community engagement. We've collaborated with Washington U Ying to not only keep the community informed, but to listen to concerns and to work together through any challenges that we might have faced. We have engaged a variety of Ward 5 and DC leaders. This is not an exhaustive list, but it just shows you some of the folks that we have engaged. And we've done a number of other things, including hosting virtual town halls. We've set up a website to keep the community informed. We've done some neighborhood canvassing and some distribution. We've given out flyers. We've also engaged neighbors in a variety of other ways. And we did hold a joint groundbreaking event in October of this school year, which sort of coincided with around the time that Washington U Ying got started with their construction work. We didn't feel it made sense for them to have a groundbreaking and then for us to come back on the same side and have another groundbreaking. So we did it together, even though we don't actually officially break ground until May. And one of the things that we're looking at in this space is that not only will it be a place that will educate another 720, 725, 730 students from across the city, but it will also be a neighborhood asset. So currently, primarily at our Second Street facility, but to some lesser extent at our temporary space in Ward 5, we host ANC meetings, we provide free notary public services, we host blood drives and clinics, both immunization and testing clinics. We make the facilities available to various neighborhood groups. We host fairs of all kinds. We intend to do all of these things to the extent that we can at the new facility, but also want to make some safety and infrastructure improvements. I alluded to that earlier in an earlier slide when I talked about a sidewalk expansions and helping with crosswalks and collaborating with Washington U Ying on additional crossing guards. Hiring local residents for a variety of new jobs that will be available with this site locating in that neighborhood, and increasing neighborhood-specific service learning projects. So all of these things are ways in which we think that we can be an asset to our neighbors and to this community, in addition, obviously, to a primary objective, which is continuing to provide a place to house our students. Right now, we're serving grades 5 through 7 in our temporary space. By the time we get to this location, we'll be serving a full middle school and 1 grade of high school. And with that said, I think I'm going to stop the share and open it up to questions. The chair of the board is also available and can answer questions that you may have.
Thank you, Peter. And again, welcome back, Mr. Merritt. Board members, I'll open it up to others with any opening questions, and congratulations for getting to this point.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter and team. Good to see you.
Sure.
Can you just talk to us a little bit about the relationship, any shared use agreement that you have with Yu Ying? How will that work? I know you showed us a rendering which looked new. Are they staying in that existing, what looked like a kind of yellowish building? And what does that look like in terms of any shared use, planning for traffic, incoming, outcoming? Because you said they're going pre-K 3 to 3rd?
No, pre-K 3 to kindergarten.
Pre-K through the kindergarten. Okay, so those are little ones, and then you're coming with 5 through eventually 12, right? So
right.
Talk to us a little bit about how you guys have thought about that and that shared use.
So first of all, we subdivided this property after we bought it. There are 3 parcels, and we sold one of the parcels to Washington Yu Ying. So their building is going to be on a parcel that they own fully. There won't be any overlap there. They will, we have talked about, we do have a shared use agreement. There are some facilities, some of our performance spaces, some of our meeting spaces that they will use. But what we've really worked on is pick up and drop off, and having a couple of different options for pick up and drop off, including having a drop off loop within the property. So going onto the property and having a drop off loop, as well as having a drop off right in front of 4301 Harewood. They also, so there are multiple spaces. So we've got right in front of 4301 Harewood, we've got within the property going, through the, turning into the property and having a loop there. And then also on First Street, right in front of their building, there's also going to be drop off possibilities there too. What's going to be very helpful is having an additional crossing guard that will help with some of that that traffic flow, and especially with the younger ones, you want to make sure you have as much safety precautions in place. And so the traffic control officer will be very helpful in that regard. I don't know if I answered your question, Chantal, if you want more details.
No, that's helpful. I was thinking specifically, right, when you think about kindergarten through or pre-K through kindergarten, generally they're dropped off, right? You walk in, you
Right.
need to sign, and that looks a little different, right? So that means those cars need to park, they need to stop, versus 5 through 8. Some parents still walk them in, but generally by 5th grade, you're like, Mom, stay in the car. I can do this on my own. So
Right.
just trying to think about how you're thinking there. And one of the pieces of information that we received, and I don't know the exact streets, but there was a question about a stoplight, I think at Taylor and 2nd Street Northeast. If that's not approved, how are you guys thinking about that kind of major intersection right there, what that would look like?
So Taylor and 2nd is a little bit further down from, so there's already a traffic light at Taylor, and I don't know if that's 4th. I have to actually check to see where that is. So there's already a traffic light that's on that road. Having one at 2nd and Taylor, that might be problematic. But in terms of just the whole idea of parents coming in and dropping off, and kindergarten parents dropping off their kids, there are a couple of things that Yu Ying has talked about. One is they've got a couple of other options. So instead of dropping off in 4301 Harewood or coming onto the property, although that's going to be part of where they can come in, There are places where they can park on site and then come out of their cars and take their kids into their building. There's also the possibility where some of the kids, if they have siblings who go to the main Washington Union campus, there's also been some talk of having, kids park a little bit closer to that campus and then parents walking those kids to the 4301 Harewood campus. So there are a couple of different things there. But one of the things we've also talked about is the idea of possibly sort of staggering, arrival times so that there's, that can also mitigate the traffic impact.
Yeah, unless you have siblings, right? Then that becomes a whole nother. But
Right,
I
right.
mean, you run a school, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I'll
And obviously things could change, but it's more for the arrival times for Latin and Yu Ying students, and there probably will be few siblings between the two campuses for that pre-K 3 to kindergarten and the 5 through 12. There are probably going to be a few siblings between those two schools because right now we don't really have too many siblings at present. I don't anticipate that being a large number, if at all.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question,
Yes.
Ruby, if I may. Yeah, could you talk to us just a little bit about the economic viability of the project? You all have some existing debt I saw on your property currently that matures in September, and then you're going to take on some construction debt as well, right? So can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
So we have actually had 4 different lending institutions that have been vying to finance our project. We have options, and I know that's not always the case for other institutions, and we haven't really done much shopping, to be honest with you. And I'll say, I was just at a conference in LA, and I was speaking to someone who knew about one of the lenders that we're considering, and he said, "Well, if that falls through, give us a call. We'd be happy to work with you." So the way it works, and among the lenders that are vying for supporting us is the lender that holds the current debt.
Okay.
And they're willing to refinance that and give us terms. We're in the process right now. We're looking at some term sheets, and the board and our facilities committee and finance committee are going to be reviewing term sheets within the next few weeks. And right now they're quite favorable, we believe, and we think we'll be in a position where we'll be able to honor existing debt obligations, take on new debt in a place that will allow us to meet all of our obligations.
That was going to be my question. Yeah. So your debt that matures in September, your existing lender is interested, amenable in providing you terms that will allow that to amortize. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. And then you'll take on the new construction financing, and you all are comfortable that your enrollment and that your cash in is going to put you in a comfortable place to be able to service the debt.
Yes, we have, right now, we have about 4,000 applications that we get for admission. So we're not worried about the enrollment being able to meet our needs. 4,000 across the LEA, not just for the Cooper campus, across the LEA.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a follow-up question to Chantel's question around the relationship between the two LEAs that will occupy these different parcels. They will open before you will, right? So you're
Yes.
proposing to open in the fall of 2025. Can
That's
you
correct.
remind me when they will open?
No, so they're going to be opening in the fall of 2024. So they will have they'll have a full year of operation, and in part they'll be able to work out some of these kinks, which I think is probably a good idea because they'll be able to work it out with the youngest children and find out what works, what their needs are, and we'll be able to sort of adjust and adapt, having seen how it works for the youngest children who are going to be on the property.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. How have, over the course of this the evolution of this project within the existing and new Latin school community. How have you engaged families to communicate expectations on timing and contingencies and all of this? Because when you started this project, some of those families were not yet part of the school community.
So is your question around contingency? So yeah, so actually that question came up. We had a town hall for the neighbors and also for existing families as recently as last week, and one of the questions came up about contingencies, and we have secured a general contractor that has had a track record of delivering on time. We have a longer runway for construction than has been typical. So just to give you points of comparison, Washington U Ying started their construction in September for a intended completion of August of 2024. We plan to start ours in May of 2024, giving us some extra time, with an intended occupancy date of August of 2025. So given that longer runway, given the general contractor that we have used that has a track record of on-time delivery, and incentives built in to continue to provide on-time delivery, we're not as worried about contingencies as perhaps might be the case for others. But there have been a variety of ways in which we have informed families. These town halls, or we do something called a Latin parent cafe, and there've been some other ways that we've engaged parents both in small groups, one-on-one, and through sort of our weekly emails that we send home to families.
Following up on that, and good evening.
Good evening.
Following up on that, I understand that you feel good about I need to know, you feel good about the delivery on that. So that's good. But I'm really curious, what is the contingency plan that has been developed? And at what point in the project would you trigger sort of that contingency plan being implemented?
So one of the contingency plans is, we've got a temporary space that we could still occupy part of that space. And we have an existing building on the site. It's going to be renovated, but we already have a building on the site that could theoretically accommodate most of the students that we would have moving onto that location. It's one of the advantages of owning the property.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then at what point, I guess, before you said occupancy August 2025. So at what point in August of 2020, or excuse me, in 2025, would you kind of look at the project and say, hey, we have to enact the contingency plan?
It's hard to say definitively at what point we would need to trigger a contingency plan, because it depends on a variety of factors. But certainly if we were severely behind schedule in March of next year, that gives us enough time to be able to make arrangements with our existing landlord, and it would allow us to do whatever we need to do on an emergency basis in the existing building, the building that's on the existing property.
Okay, thank you.
Please go ahead, Carissa.
I was gonna say, I just have one more question. I'd love to hear from you. I see that there's a wait list, and obviously there's incredible demand for your school. I would love to just hear from you what makes your school different or unique, or what attracts parents to your school.
So how much time do I have to answer that question? So Washington Latin, I think, does a number of things that are unique. We're diverse by design, and we were diverse by design before that became a catchphrase in the lexicon. We have stability in our leadership team and in our faculty. We have very high faculty retention rates. And what does that mean? It means that we have highly capable, highly credentialed and highly qualified teachers who are able to provide a wonderful learning experience for students. We have small class sizes, and so we're able to have deeper relationships with students. Students are more deeply known, perhaps because of that. We have a highly relational community, which connects to the small class sizes, but it's not just because of that. It's because of sort of our mission and our approach, where we prioritize the relationships within the community. We have one of the reasons why we have a high teacher retention rate is because we treat teachers as decision makers, respect them as experts. We stimulate them and nurture them intellectually, and we give them autonomy. And so we don't, yes, within certain guardrails, but we give them quite a bit of autonomy. We also have, so those things I think are some of the things that we sort of put into place, some of the inputs, and then some of the outputs is that we've had a track record. We're now in our 18th year. We've had a number of students who have not only gone on to get merit scholarships and thrive in college and career, but 10% of our faculty across the LEA are alumni. The fact that our alumni come back and are thriving is a good testament to what we're doing. And 12% of our faculty are parents of current or former students. And so the fact that the people who work there want their kids to go there also, I think, speaks to the quality of what's happening in the environment. And I could go on all night, but I'll pause there and ask you if you want any more.
No,
And maybe I can just add one more perspective from the Board of Governors, because we also believe we have a tremendous leadership team, right? It's advanced quite a bit over the past several years. And so it's as Peter said, there are so many factors there, but ranging from all the families, the students, the alums, but then also our leadership team is a place which is advanced over the years.
Thank you for that.
Peter, that's what you always want your board chair saying nice stuff like that about you.
I just texted him.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
I believe we will see you next month to
That's
vote
right.
on this.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, because I held the vote to open the agenda and approve the agenda a bit preemptively, we can move directly on. Thank you, everyone, for that. So next on the agenda is to vote to open revisions to the charter goals policy for public comment. And to give some context for this proposed action, I will yield the floor back to Dr. Walker Davis and to Starling Temp, Data and Accountability Goals Specialist.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy. As this board knows, for the past few months, we have been talking about Aspire, our proposed accountability system. Tonight, we're talking about an equally important part of our system of accountability, our charter goals policy. We are asking the board to officially open the proposed policy for public comment. If the board approves the request, the policy will be posted on our website under the tab Public Comment. This will be an opportunity for the public to read and review the policy and submit comments in writing, through voicemail, or testifying at any board meeting. We will have a public hearing on April 8th, specifically to discuss the charter goals policy, and public comment will close on that day as well. At the end of last month and the beginning of this month, staff held learning sessions on the policy in which I was able to participate, and there was robust conversation and good questions. And I want to state again that I really do appreciate and would like to thank the school leaders for their ongoing partnership in this process. At this point, we would like to share a short presentation that I will start and then turn over to Starling Temp to finish. We could go to slide 2, please. As you well know, revising the accountability system supports DCPCSB's overall arching vision that every student receives a quality education that makes them feel valued and prepares them for lifelong learning, fulfilling careers, and economic security. And we fundamentally believe that schools should produce equitable outcomes for all students, ensuring that students from historically marginalized groups receive a quality education. Next slide. To support schools in creating or sustaining environments where all students thrive, the DCPCSB provides oversight in 3 specific areas: academics, finance, and overall organization. In order for us to provide academic oversight, including our proposed accountability system, Aspire, DC public charter schools must have charter goals. These are the academic achievement expectations that enable schools to best serve their students. The School Reform Act also mandates that schools set such goals. When providing our oversight, such as during high-stakes reviews and renewals, and with the implementation of our Aspire system, DCPCSB will hold schools accountable to the goals that they set. To help schools stay on track to serving their students, we propose the Charter Goals Policy, which involves creating guidelines and pathways for schools to set their goals and to stick to them. In the presentation, you will hear more about the proposed revisions to our current Charter Goals Policy, which reflects the current deviation from the COVID-19 impact policy and changes to support the Aspire system. Next slide, please. As this board knows, DCPCSB has a long history of strong accountability. And part of that has been setting and maintaining charter goal policies to help schools oversee and where they serve their students. During the COVID-19 pandemic, PCSB staff and you, the board, saw the pronounced need for us to adjust our data collection and reporting practices to be responsive to schools and student needs. Hence, we created the first part of the Charter Goals Policy. Thankfully, schools are in recovery mode, but the implications of the pandemic are still being felt, and the proposed revised Charter Goals Policy reflects our future expectations. The policy addresses the use of transitional goals data, initially collected under the COVID-19 impact policy, along with the use of other data that will inform goal determination. As you can see, our current policy opened for public comment in April of 2023, with a public hearing in May, and you voted on that policy in July. Since then, DCPCSB data and policy team have been working hard to develop revisions in order to reflect schools' reality once Aspire is implemented. We recently held learning sessions for key stakeholders to understand these changes and are officially opening the proposed revisions for public comment today. Office hours around this policy will begin in March, and again, the public hearing for the new proposed Charter Goal Policy will be on April 8th. We look forward to the board voting on this policy on June 10th at our June meeting. I will now turn it over to Starling Temp, our goals specialist, to share the specific revisions being proposed this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Walker-Davis. One of the key objectives of the proposed revisions to the Charter Goals Policy is to consolidate and expand upon existing DCPCSB Charter Goals related policies and guidelines, creating a single comprehensive policy. So before I share more details about the proposed components of the revised Charter Goals Policy, I'll share important context regarding DCPCSB's historical policy and practice pertaining to charter goals. As Dr. Walker-Davis previously highlighted, per the School Reform Act, public charter schools must develop student academic achievement expectations, or charter goals, as part of their charter agreement. Historically, schools have either developed individualized charter goals, or after the creation of the Performance Management Framework, elected to adopt the PMF as charter goals. Guidance on the standards used to develop individualized charter goals has historically existed in 2 places. the charter school application guidelines for new schools, and the charter goals amendment application for our existing schools. DC PCSB proposes including more detailed standards for new or existing schools that elect to develop individualized charter goals within the revised charter goals policy. For schools that previously elected to adopt the PMF as charter goals, they did so through the elect to adopt the PMF as charter goals policy. That policy defined the academic standards for continuance for schools with the PMF as charter goals. Considering DC PCSB's new proposed accountability system, Aspire, the proposed revisions to the charter goals policy would replace the former elect to adopt the PMF as charter goals policy and provide academic standards for continuance that are aligned to Aspire. Another relevant policy that informed the proposed revisions to the charter goals policy is the charter amendments for revised goals policy. This policy provides details on the process and timeline for completing charter goal amendment requests. We propose incorporating relevant details from this policy within the revised charter goals policy. Finally, the COVID-19 impact policy, again, as Dr. Walker-Davis mentioned earlier, was really the foundation for the current iteration of the charter goals policy. This policy defined DC PCSB's oversight and accountability practices following the pandemic. In recognition of continued post-pandemic academic recovery efforts, proposed revisions to the charter goals policy will still offer schools a pathway for goal attainment when demonstrating improvement in outcomes over time until full implementation of the Aspire system in 26-27. It's important to reiterate that all elements of the policy remain proposed. DC PCSB staff acknowledge that board feedback, public comment, and the analysis of school year 22-23 school outcomes may inform further changes to the policy prior to the vote on June 10th. The proposed revised policy serves several key functions. It will, 1, establish a means for schools to adopt Aspire as their charter goals. 2, detail standards for individually negotiated goals for both new and existing schools. 3, centralize goals guidance for processes such as charter amendments, annual reporting, and charter reviews and renewals. And lastly, retain the relevant content, for example, transitional goals and goal attainment pathways from both the COVID-19 impact policy and the current charter goals policy. The proposed policy is broken into 3 distinct sections, the first of which is adopting and amending charter goals. This section describes the guidelines DC PCSB will use to negotiate and recommend approval for new and amended charter goals. Most notably, it establishes the process by which schools may elect to adopt Aspire as charter goals. It also codifies DC PCSB's current and historic practice surrounding minimum standards for individually negotiated charter goals and expectations for goal targets, assessments, and business rules. Finally, it captures the process and timeline for charter goals amendment requests, as well as grounds for removing goals or lowering goal targets. The second section of the policy defines goal determination pathways from school year 22-23 through school year 26-27. This section describes how DC PCSB will assess goal attainment in charter reviews and renewals for the listed school years. For goal determination in school year 22-23 and school year 23-24, the guidance is largely unchanged from the July 2023 charter goals policy, and this includes multiple pathways for goal attainment in each of those years. For school year 24-25 and school year 25-26, the policy continues to offer all schools a pathway for goal attainment when demonstrating improvement in outcomes over time, including for schools that elect to adopt Aspire as charter goals, but generally offers less pathways as DC PCSB moves towards full implementation of the Aspire system. In school year 24-25, DC PCSB will begin implementing the Aspire system and move away from the use of transitional goals and other alternative pathways for goal attainment. You will see here a description of the goal attainment pathways DCPCSB proposes applying both to schools with individually negotiated goals and school with Aspire as goals, or current PMF as goal schools pending adoption of Aspire or newly individually negotiated goals. For school year 24-25 through school year 26-27. A detailed summary of all goal attainment pathways available to schools, beginning from school year 18-19 and all the way through school year 26-27, can be found in Appendix A of the proposed policy, but I'm going to focus on these 3 years. For schools with Aspire as goals, earning a level 3 or higher, levels 1 or 2, is the defined threshold for determining charter goals as met. However, schools earning a level 4 can still meet their goals if demonstrating improvement in their score from the prior year. For schools with individually negotiated goals, if a goal's target is not met outright, the goal may still be deemed as met if the outcome is improved on from the prior year. For school year 25-26, you will see that the improvement pathway is applicable at the board's sole discretion. To help inform the board's decision, DCPCSB staff will provide members with a thorough analysis, as is always included in any review and renewal report, of a school's level of improvement across all goals or measures, with an emphasis on school achievement and school progress. The board may also consider student group performance and other relevant context when determining acceptable improvement. In school year 26-27, DCPCSB proposes moving to a single pathway for goal attainment, either earning a level 3 on Aspire or meeting individually negotiated goal targets outright. However, you will see a very small note that in school year 26-27, Aspire goal attainment pathways may be adjusted following the collection and analysis of school year 23-24 and school year 24-25 data. DCPCSB staff acknowledge that it is important to consider the appropriateness of this pathway once more performance outcomes are available. The final section of the proposed policy describes DCPCSB's processes for monitoring schools' progress in meeting charter goals, such as annual reporting and reviews and renewals, as well as the possible actions taken when a local education agency is not meeting its charter goals. Consequences for underperformance on the Aspire system included in the policy are a reiteration of the standards established in the Aspire policy and technical guide. In closing, I'd like to once again highlight important dates and opportunities for engagement on the proposed revisions to the Charter Goals policy. DCPCSB staff will host 3-hour-long office hour sessions for school leaders in mid to late March. The public hearing will be held on April 8th, and you will vote on this policy on June 10th. I will now turn it back to Chair Cruzy.
Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis and Starling, for that. Quite a lot of work has gone into this. I would like to invite board members to offer some comments and if necessary, ask some questions here before I entertain a motion. Right now I can only see Starling, so I can't tell who might like to go first.
I have a question, and then I do have a comment that I want to make sure hits the record. But Starling, and I think Dr. Walker Davis talked about it on the slides that came previous to you, but I'd like you to just share to date, just with the public and for record, some of the work that has been done to incorporate any formal or informal feedback, even on this current charter goals policy to date. I know you've had a million about Aspire, but I also know that there have been 99,000 around the goals policy. So if you could just share a little bit of context, and then I would like to just share my thoughts on this.
I can thank you, Board Member Wright. I can take initial stab at it, and Starling, who's been at the center of the work, can probably add anything. So you are correct. We've had lots of conversation about Aspire, and by design, we were very intentional around having conversations about the technical pieces of Aspire and all of the moving pieces separate and apart from the broader policy implications of our accountability system. But we have been informing LEAs all along that that is going to come. We have been able to have learning sessions on the proposed changes to the charter goals policy. And first, I will say we had engagement around the current policy that is in place covering up to school year 23-24. And so we had some reaction to that policy that was sort of the foundation of the work that we did around the current proposal. And then we had learning sessions with schools to walk through the actual proposed revisions. We talked about what that looks like in the existing or historical practices that we had and what minor changes we might be making to that. I would say we spent most of our time talking about the multiple pathways that schools have for demonstrating goal attainment and what might be now possible under in this transition time, and when schools adopt the Aspire, should they choose to adopt the Aspire framework. So I would say that's where the bulk of our feedback has been. As Starling mentioned, this is a proposal to the board, so we are hoping that if there are more specific things that LEAs want to see reactions to, that will come in this public comment process. And then over the next few weeks, we also have office hours, and I suspect that we'll hear more specific feedback from schools during the office hours. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Starling.
Nope, that's what I was going to note as well.
Okay. And I think, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Walker Davis. I think it's important because I don't want it to ever appear that we're doing things in isolation. Like, we understand how all the pieces work together and how they impact schools, particularly schools who are up for high stake reviews and whether they have critical amendments, et cetera, during this transitional time. So I just want to thank you, Starling, and the PCSB staff. I think that this policy sets the bar for what we aspire public education to be. As Dr. Walker shared earlier in our summary, our vision is that every student receives a quality education, and schools should produce equitable outcomes for all students, ensuring that our students from historically marginalized groups also receive a quality education. I appreciate the work that's been done to date as a former school leader, and that's how I'm always going to come to these meetings. I recognize that that has not always been the case, and I want to make sure we continue to acknowledge the work of the staff, to engage LEAs, to make sure folks understand what's happening, what's coming down the pike, et cetera. And so I just want to make sure the other public voices also know that they had that chance to incorporate any formal or informal feedback as well. So I will be voting yes to open the charter goals policy for public comment. I'm eager to hear from the public, particularly parents. I know it can be a lot, families, when you're looking at this, it can be very technical, but I'd love to hear from you about how this policy will improve public education for you. And I also want to just place a direct call of action to school leaders to share your thoughts and feedback, attend the office hours that PCSB staff is offering, keeping in mind that in exchange for the accountability all charters are granted, there is an equal expectation for accountability. So I want to hear from schools about this policy and the impact of the same until Aspire is finalized. And just to remind everybody, this is not a time for our public voices to be silent. But thank you, PCSB staff, for what all you do, and Starling for leading this particular portion of the effort.
Thank you, Board Member Wright. Would anybody else like to offer a comment? Nick, I'm reading your face and it looks like you might be ready to go.
Yeah. Just a quick thank you. Yeah, just a quick comment to say that I will be voting to open the charter goals policy for public comment tonight. Starling team, you've done a fantastic job, and just as with the Aspire policy, this policy deserves a good airing and an opportunity for us to have that discussion together. Broadly, by way of my own commentary, it does represent a really important milestone in our journey to return to normal after the pandemic. Now, to be sure, we are returning slowly and carefully still. The policy phases in the new system, and in this sense is in sync with the phase-in of Aspire itself. It's very careful and thoughtful about providing multiple pathways to goal achievement over multiple years for our schools. And it gives schools the runway to understand expectations and to learn what it takes to meet them before accountability necessarily gets sharper and tighter. Now, there are always trade-offs here. There are some, and I do share this inclination, some who would argue that the return to full accountability isn't fast enough on this timeline. We do need to be fair and even-handed with our schools, but we also should keep in mind that our students and families cannot be asked to wait too long for their schools to improve and for us to hold them accountable for that. Ultimately, students and families are the ones we were appointed to serve as a board. So I would really welcome feedback from the public on the contours of that particular debate during the comment period. Broadly, however, it is now time to take this step to bring all of our accountability measures back online. Charter school goals are the basis for charter renewals and continuances, and they're at the heart of this. And for this reason, I'm ready to vote yes to open this policy for public comment.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to go ahead. This evening, I will be voting yes to join the charter goals policy for public comment. Charter goals are much more than a technical element of a contract. They are promises that a school is making to its students. What's unique about the particular program offering an experience that one school offers than another? How does a charter schools board, who is responsible for oversight of and progress towards against these goals, how do they measure success toward these? I really appreciate how Dr. Walker Davis's leadership and the staff's hard and thoughtful work to revisit and revise this policy. And now I am interested in feedback on the policy and guidelines. I'm mindful that this is yet another critical oversight action that this independent government agency stands out among its peers nationwide for its rigor and support of a rich and diverse sector that now serves nearly half of our city's public school students. Figuring out how to navigate our way out of the pandemic so that students, including those designated as at risk and those with disabilities, how these students thrive in their schools and especially are on their own paths to lifelong learning, fulfilling careers, and economic security. We could zoom out from that timeline Dr. Walker Davis shared in an earlier presentation to showcase how this exercise, which is continuous improvement in our policies centered on the success of students and schools we authorize, continues a long, actually multi-generational arc of this city's commitments to students. It's accelerated since charters entered the scene nearly 30 years ago, strengthening its commitment to quality, equity, and access so that young people are on a path to success and learning in life. So with that, I join my fellow board members who've said thus far to encourage schools, encouraging their boards and their families and other partners to take a look and give us your thoughts so that our collective promise to provide high quality learning environments and options to all district-wide are just that. Thank you. Okay. If we are ready, I will entertain a motion.
I motion to open the revisions to the charter goals policy for public comment.
Second.
Thank you.
I'll take
Just a reminder that we've got
a proxy. Yep, thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Chairwoman Cruzy.
Aye.
Board member Carissa Stanley Beatty. Did I get that right? Colleague, I got it right.
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Looks-
I'm sorry.
I said it looks like Beatty.
Beatty. Okay, got it. Thank you. Board member Wright.
If I could figure out Zoom, I would say aye. I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Rodriguez.
Aye.
I have a proxy from board member Vice Chair Sandman, and he is an aye, and I am an aye as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Starling. Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis and team.
Thank you. Public, please, we want to hear from you, so please use this comment period wisely.
All right, next we will vote on the consent calendar. Would any board member like to remove an item from the calendar for further discussion or state a recusal for the record? If not, I will now entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I move to approve all items on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. You're ready?
Yes, I'm.
Okay.
Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Board Member Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman voted by proxy. He is an aye. I am an aye as well.
Thank you, Secretary Adamafenian. Is there any new business? Seeing none, one last time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
And I
With
second.
you, I'm with you. I think we need the date though.
Oh,
I move that we adjourn today's meeting, February 26th, 2024.
and I second.
And we'll take a roll call vote.
Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sandman voted by proxy. He is an aye. I am an aye as well. Good
Good
night,
night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.